Do you ever feel like when giving critical feedback that you might be insulting them? Or your words might come across as confrontation instead of help or building? Now, if so, this is completely normal. And you should listen, because I'm going to be going over how to give critical feedback without sounding like a four-letter word. Now, the benefits to giving good critical feedback are numerous. Some of them, to state some of the more important ones for business, are increased efficiency. If you help people with where they went wrong, they're going to work more efficiently, as well as increased employee retention. Instead of firing people, if you build them to be better workers, you're obviously going to lower your turnover rate. And third of all, you're going to increase collaboration between workers and increase the positive nature of that work environment. Now, if all these are so beneficial, obviously increasing the value of a company, how come it's done less often? And that's because most people are concerned about it. What they're concerned about is, in giving critical feedback, that they might insult the person, that they might lead to legal liability for their company themselves, or that they might discourage their workers. Now, in actuality, this leads to ignoring the problem. And ignoring the problem really leads to these three things more often than vice versa. And that gets into something that's very, very important, and that is the repeat of giving good critical feedback. So we'll get into more of the ideas of how we give critical feedback now that we know that we need it. So, breaking it down, there are two types of critical feedback, at least in most of our minds, and that's positive and negative. Now, it's more complicated than that, because good critical feedback merges the two, and it takes into account that things aren't black and white in our world. And with that being said, here are three things that you can focus on that will really improve your giving of critical feedback as well as your taking of critical feedback if you account for these factors whenever you're in a situation where this might occur. Now, the first one is being focused. Using a narrow scope and really focusing in on some of the key things that you want to change when you're giving this feedback is critical. And the main reason for this is bounded rationality. Us as humans can't handle 50 different issues that we may have had over the previous year. So it's very, very important that you focus on 3 to 4 key things that you would like to see this person change and go with those. Now the next one is being fair. Being fair is a multifaceted thing that you have to account for. Most people think it's just treating people equally, but it goes beyond that. It goes into the idea of being open-minded and making sure that their voice is heard. So you hear them out. You might not necessarily be right. As well as telling them what they're doing right. Showing them that you notice the good things that you're doing makes your negative comments that much more approachable. And third of all, don't make it personal. Oftentimes people take it personally, so if you can try to go that extra layer and say, hey, this isn't about you, this is just business, and if you were to do this, it would make everything better. Now, third of all, and most importantly, you have to do this often. As I mentioned earlier, the main factors that are leading to people not doing this often are actually hurting the company far more than the actual giving of critical feedback. So the more often this is done, the more used to your employees are going to get to this process, as well as the more information you're going to be able to give across. So doing this often is something that I highly recommend and isn't done enough in this industry. So again, 3 things that I really, really hope you are to take a photo of this or screenshot it and write these down, because if you're to write these 3 things down and implement them into your daily life, it will take you a mile. And here's a personal experience for me. I had this work project presentation for a business course. It was a course in management, and we were delivering a case study. And after the presentation, I went and sat down with the professor, after, and though he might not have done these actively, he was doing these passively. And I really, really noticed the way that he was focused with his insults. Insults are an interesting way to put it, but changes that he suggested to us. He only gave us 3 main takeaways, as well as the fact that he was very fair. He did this for everyone, so that made me feel equal, as well as he heard what we had to say and he took into account that. As well as, he did this about 3 times for our one presentation, before, after, and also one week after he told us to change a couple of things. This was incredibly beneficial. Now, something that you can do right now that I would highly recommend is using this every day. Not just in a professional setting, but in a personal setting, with your relationships, with your friends, and seeing how this can benefit you in those, and as well as in your professional life. It will make you better at this critical feedback, and just overall, hopefully, a more rounded person. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you later.